If you run a painting company, give me the next 10 minutes and I'm going to show you how to build a lead generation system that books your calendar before the month even starts. And we built this for solo painters to 5-crew teams and even doing 3 million plus a year. And so I'm going to show you today in the exact lead stack we use with our clients to get more leads consistently month over month. This isn't theory. This isn't just like some trends. It's what actually works. And so if you've been stuck between, Meta, Google, Angie, referrals, this will show you what to do, use it, when, and why to use it. Before we get into that, before we get started, you probably don't actually need more leads. Now that sounds really counterintuitive. It may sound a little bit odd coming from a marketing company, but after working with 100 plus painting businesses across North America, from solo owners that are doing a couple $100,000 a year to franchises pulling 10 million plus, we've seen the same things, which is most painting companies don't have a lead quality problem or a lead volume problem. They just have a lead consistency and conversion problem. So in this video, I'm going to go over exactly how we get dozens of estimates weekly consistently for each of our clients that actually convert and how you can do it too. And truthfully, with this, like most painters have 80% of it right. So they're getting a bunch of leads in, or maybe they're not getting any leads in. They have the right conversion mechanisms. They're just missing the last 20% that make it work. Because at the end of the day, like the real problem isn't the platforms. It isn't Meta. It isn't Google. It isn't just like bad leads in general. It is the system behind getting those leads. Because if we're being honest, homeowners aren't waking up and saying, I want a stranger from Facebook to come paint my home. They want to feel trust. They want to feel like they made the right decision. They want to feel like they picked the right company without having to think about it too hard. And most painters don't build that trust until the quote. And our goal is to flip that with our advertising. So we want to be able to manufacture trust before the quote while still bringing in a pipeline full of leads every single month. The system we use for that is called the PaintLaunch system. And no, it's not magic. This is just the ad system that gets better the longer you run it, as well as our clients. And it's built around 4 simple but overlooked components, which is advertising, nurturing, positioning, and systems. There's a little bit of tracking within those systems. Now, some companies will have 1 or 2 of these 4 pillars, but without all 4, it really does come crashing down. So let's break down each of these and why they are so important and how you can implement them yourself to get more leads consistently that actually convert into jobs. Pillar 1 is just having a residential advertising system that does convert. Now, what we've found perform the best is Meta, because there's billions of users you can get in front of real homeowners within your market fairly easily. It's also the most cost effective from like what we've found. The problem with most ads on Meta is they look very generic or they're outdated. They look like realtor billboards from, like 20 years ago. And that does not build trust within your market, and they trigger skepticism. And the reason this is so important is because every single year, buyers become more skeptical about advertisers. With Google doing a study a couple years ago, finding in today's market, on average, a new customer needs to see you for 7 hours across 11 different touch points with 4 different platforms before they convert. So that can be when they're at the estimate, that can be, on Google, that can be on Facebook ads, that can be through your content, that could be through emails, et cetera, et cetera. But we need to get in front of them those amount of times to get them to convert on average. With this study, we've also found a couple different things that's a little bit more nuanced to the niche of painting, which is, actually coming down to the conversion rate for when the lead is generated. Now, yes, some of these do pull on trust, but some of these pull on other factors like income, et cetera, which I'll run through. So the 4 that we see is localization, income mapping, organic ad angles, and clear offers. So I'm going to run through that a little bit more. One being localization. As you can imagine, you're going to trust someone a lot more when they are more local to you. It's just inherent because you think they're your neighbor. So if you run an ad that says, hey, North America, you're going to get people that aren't going to trust you as much versus when someone says, hey, XYZ city or hey, XYZ street, right? If someone said, hey, 123 example street, right? And you lived on example street, you would feel like that is a very local person. You're going to trust them inherently more than someone that says, hey, North America. So localization within your ads really does help with building that trust, but also your conversion. The next is the income mapping. So making sure that we're getting the right people through. This comes down to more of that conversion process. As you can imagine, if we're trying to pitch a $10,000 job to someone that makes $20,000 a year, it's going to be a pretty hard conversion versus someone that makes $200,000 or $300,000 a year. So we want to make sure that we're getting the right people through, and that's how we can do that. So we can pull up income maps and target the right people. The third part of this is organic ad angles. Again, this just builds more trust within your marketplace. What we like to do is put the business owner front and center, because then people can know, like, and trust John, Steven, whoever it may be over time. So they can have that familiar face. In any given market, there's hundreds of painting companies, but there is only one you. And so if you can build that brand, you're going to build more trust long term. Lastly is just having clear offers that match your buyer's persona. So if you are a cheaper painting company, you're going to want to put a lot more like $500 off, free room offers, etc. If you're trying to be someone that's more premium, you may do a free paint paint upgrade, which, conveys that you're more of a quality company. It is still a great offer, but it's a value add and not a detract. So that's just how you put like the right things out there. And using each of these plus the 7, 11, 4 rules inside of your advertising will allow you to not only become the one choice they want to work with, but the one that is the more premium company if you're going for the premium one, or be more the budget option if you're the more budget one. And we've spent over $1.5 million in ad spend testing all these angles across most regions in North America. So like we know what works for painters because we've tested it for painters. Pillar 2, follow-up systems. So typically what happens is you'll advertise on Meta, you'll advertise on Google, you'll advertise with local service ads through Google, you'll maybe do some Angie, some Thumbtack, some Home Advisor, whatever it may be. And the lead comes in, you end up calling them a couple hours later, you get no answer, you leave a voicemail and you write them off. And they almost never call back. And this happens to almost every painting company we talk to at one time or another. And the problem is that they're typically just too late. So there was a study done by Harvard Business Review that found if you follow up with your leads within the first 5 minutes, you are likely to increase your throughput by 391%. So basically you can 4x your conversion of those leads coming through into quotes and deals. Now you can do this and get notified, rush to your phone, text them, call them, email them. But what we found is, especially with those companies that are smaller, it's fairly unsustainable, especially like at scale. If you are just that central person from like 500 to 1 million, you trying to call a lead within the first 5 minutes isn't usually the thing that's going to happen. So we built our own system around that to improve just that. It's called our auto book system. So we've gone through 11 full iterations within this in 3 years to follow up like your best estimator, but faster and without wasting dozens of hours monthly. So it texts a lead instantly, it emails them, it follows up with them for a 15-day period to get them converted into a quote. And as you can imagine, that converts more people into sales. We're literally seeing people 2x their set rate by just implementing this sort of thing. And this can be built into existing CRM. So if you're using a drip jobs, using a high level, etc., you can build something out just like this or without. And because we have this, we find nearly 38% of our leads just convert into a quote on average without even having to call them. So yes, still call your leads 1000%. If you're not calling your leads, you're not going to get the same result as someone that does. But because we have this, we find that nearly 38% of our leads convert into a quote on average without even having to have a phone call. And this is not saying to not call your leads, right? I have like an entirely separate video on why that is just as important, calling them 7 to 10 times. But having these follow-up systems in place allows you to have that time to make those calls. So once we get those leads in, they're qualified, they're in the right areas, we need to make sure we can get them into quotes. And this is what that does. Once we have them into quotes, we need to make sure we nurture them before we actually get in front of them. And this is honestly the biggest drop off I see with any painting company I work with. They get the lead in, maybe they have the proper setting process and get them set into a quote, but then they just leave them for a 60-minute estimate and they just pray that they trust them, when in reality, like they're not going to trust them. They've only interacted with their business maybe 2 times. If we're pulling back on that 7-11-4 rule, they're not really pulling through on that. And so we need to make sure that we're getting in touch with them, they're viewing enough content, etc. So that's what we do here. This is the pre-sale nurture that we implement for the painting companies we work with. One, it helps with the frame, right? So the homeowner knows what to expect. It also helps with the positioning. So the homeowner knows enough about them to convert in that 60-minute estimate period. If you don't do these, you're not going to have a frame, you're not going to have the positioning that you actually need to convert them, and you're going to be stuck in the follow-ups day in, day out. And what happens is if you miss both of these things, like most painting companies, closing at 50 or 60% is going to feel like pulling teeth. It's going to be very hard because they just don't trust you enough. So now what we use for the painting companies we work with is very, very simple, but it does help with converting them. And it's as simple as, one, sending them a thank you video as soon as they actually schedule the quote. This can be forwarding them to a page. This can be sending them a link right after in the confirmation. This can be a 2 to 3 minute video of you introducing yourself, the expectations of the quote, and that you are going to be asking for the sale on the spot. Once you do that, you have reminders that get sent out. So this is typically a 24-hour reminder. This is a 1-hour reminder, morning of reminder, all those things. This can be SMS and email. And then lastly, remarketing them through the whole process. So if they book a quote on a Tuesday, they see you 5, 6, 7 times before the quote on Friday. And this allows you to get all those touch points, all those hours, as well as all those interactions on the different platforms to get them to convert. Now, if you have all those 3 pillars in place, right? So you're getting the leads in consistently every single week, you're getting say 10, 15, 20 leads, you're booking the majority of those into quotes, and you have the right pre-sale nurture to make sure they know, like, and trust you. It all comes down to, converting them in the sales process. And that is where we do place that on the companies we work with. Again, you have to have a sales process to work with us. And if you don't, then I don't recommend work with us. But if you have that, you're going to crush it with all these 3 things. Now, once you get that deal through, you want to make sure you can get more out of those prospects, which goes into pillar number 4, which is your organic growth. And to be honest, like, we used to skip this, and like most agencies do, it has become more important than ever forever, and it's actually a new staple for the clients we work with. It is the stuff that compounds. So with this, we have found painting businesses can add 15, 20, 30 quotes a month without spending any extra on the ads they're running, just getting more out of the clients they convert from our system. And the first part of that is automating organic. So automating your organic search specifically, which is your Google business profile. So we have a couple examples down here of clients that have worked with us just for a couple of months on this and gone literally, you can see from here, they had 0 calls before. Now they're getting 10 calls, 15 calls, 20 calls, right? And you can see these growth curves. And these all come down to 7 tweaks that we make on these platforms, right? So they're very simple tweaks, but it's what helps them grow effectively month over month over month organically. So they're not having to spend any more on these platforms, but they're also getting all these warm leads. The second part of organic growth is content. Now, we don't help on posting or creating content as much, and because that's a full-time position for most. The portion we help with is for email, because email is the only platform that I know of that has over a 36 to 1 average return on investment. Meaning for every dollar we spend on sending an email, writing it, etc., agency fees, whatever it may be, there's $36 returned back, which is pretty sweet. And it's partly the reason for why we offer it is because you have already spent the money to get the lead, to get the quote, to get the job, whatever it may be. And so all you're doing is either incentivizing those prospects to engage again, to go to the next step, or get them to buy again. It's pretty simple. So if you are a business with thousands of leads, hundreds of jobs, this is something that you need to look into immediately, because it can be a boost of 10 to 20 extra quotes in a few hours. And that's what we do for all the companies we work with. Okay, so if you got all that right, the last part is pillar number 5, which is your systems and tracking. So if you're getting a bunch of leads in now, you're booking them all into quotes, they know, like, and trust you before the quote, and you have organic to get more out of those leads, quotes, and jobs that came through. The last part is just tracking all of that, right? So if you have multiple lead sources, which most painting companies that work with us do, is they need to know the direct ROI from all those. And what typically happens is when we start breaking this down, a lot of the painting companies are surprised. Like, you literally see their eyes widen up. I've done this multiple times where our clients never really knew how poor or great certain channels were performing. And that isn't where you should stop though, right? So like, you should track everything by like the zip code, by the project type. If you're running ads, by the ad. The most important metric being ROI. Other things you can track are the close rate by source, the average job size by source, the set rate by source, and then you can filter out or cut those lead sources sooner than later. And this is what we do for all the painting companies we work with. So that is the full automated system on how you can get more leads for your painting company, all the way from doing a couple $100,000 a year to doing multiple 7 figures. If you found this useful, feel free to hit the subscribe button down below. And if this was of any interest and you need more help on getting more leads consistently for your painting business, there's also a link down below to where you can schedule a call with our team. Other than that, if you enjoyed the video, again, press the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.